This program contains hunting scenes that may concern some viewers.
For hunters, a clean kill is the ultimate thrill.
It really makes me feel alive.
But popularity means more inexperienced hunters, more guns, more danger.
The hunting skills are rudimentary. They're fairly basic.
Look, they're just out there just to shoot whatever bloody moves.
Australia's renewed love affair with guns and hunting. Welcome to Four Corners. It's 17 years since Martin Bryant gunned down 35 innocent people at Port Arthur, and Prime Minister John Howard introduced some of the most stringent gun controls in the world. Almost 700,000 firearms were destroyed in a gun buyback scheme. Having opposed many of those controls at the time, the gun lobby is now bouncing back, with the number of registered guns and licensed gun owners soaring. There are now an estimated 730,000 licensed gun owners across the country and millions of guns. The Shooters and Fishers Party holds the balance of power in the New South Wales Upper House, and it's planning to run Senate candidates in all states in the Northern Territory. Bob Katter's Australian Party wants a relaxation of gun controls and has 3 seats in the Queensland Parliament. And in WA, the Shooters and Fishers also have an Upper House seat. In New South Wales, hunters are allowed in state forests, and the Premier, Barry O'Farrell, has now given them the go-ahead in the state's 77 national parks and reserves. The New South Wales government-funded Game Council is promoting what it calls conservation hunting and is encouraging families, and particularly women, to take it up. On the other hand, opponents of these changes say they're seeing more and more rogue hunters and are fearful that tragic accidents will occur. With the national parks due to be open to shooters later this year, reporter Matthew Carney went bush with hunters to hear and see what attracts them and what safeguards they practice.
Wonnangatta National Park sits high in the heart of Victoria's alpine country. An isolated wilderness. Hunters from all over Australia make a pilgrimage here to chance their skills against an elusive but most prized prey, the sambar deer. It's early and a cold morning.
Would you like some breakfast?
John Clapham and his wife Kath, with their young children, are here to hunt.
Subtle taste of flavors.
We'll go up and we'll have a look for the stag and those couple of hinds again.
John and Kath are skilled hunters, but it took John 3 years before he bagged his first sambar deer.
They're probably the most difficult animal that we have in Australia to hunt.
The biggest challenge.
Biggest challenge, yeah, and that's what it's all about. It's not about the kill, it's about the hunt.
And when the New South Wales government opens 77 national parks and reserves to hunting, they believe they'll all be model hunters like John and Kath.
We're going to come out today and come for a hunt. Yeah, and we'll see if we can get ourselves...
Find something.
Yeah, a deer. Yeah.
Good friend Stephen Matthews and his son Will also hunt. In most states in Australia, children can shoot a gun legally when they turn 12. And the number of young shooters getting hunting licences has nearly doubled in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I introduced him to it and got him his miner's permit when he was 12, and now he's game permit and he's quite keen to walk around the mountains all day chasing deer. So.
Last year, Will killed his first sambar deer.
We were across the valley and we got honked, and you could see the stag there, and I took a shot at it, got him. It took us a while to get over to it, but yeah, wasn't that big actually. Didn't have any antlers, but.
How did you feel?
It was sensational. Getting my first deer. Actually, that sambar was the first deer I ever shot. So.
What did you feel for the animal? Anything?
Well, you got to feel some sort of compassion. You know, you're ending their life and whatnot, but you got to get over that.
Hunting is one of the reasons gun ownership is at record levels. There's now nearly 3 million registered guns in Australia.
Don't I need ammunition?
Kath hopes her kids will become hunters too.
I love the fact that I'm going to bring an animal home and feed my family with it. I know where it's come from, and I have great respect for the animals. But then there's the emotional side when you've taken a deer and you sit down with it and you put a twig of bush in its mouth and say, thank you very much. I'm going to take you home now.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah.
To operate safely, you've got to put yourself in a position where you're not going to take risk. Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you identify your target every time. Yeah.
I mean, you can't take out all that risk, can you?
Life has risk. Life has risk. Yeah.
As they head into the valley, John comes across a shrine to a fallen hunter.
What I know that had happened is that he was sitting under a tree and he was wearing dry-as-a-bone and a dry-as-a-bone hat, from what I understand, and the shape he took was of a deer lying down underneath the bush, and his friend accidentally shot him.
So his friend was nearby?
Yeah, they were hunting together.
Today, hunters wear blaze orange for safety. It's a colour deer don't recognise.
We used to camp halfway down, but the dogs got too bad.
Camped on the edge of the forest are the Vandenbrands, 3 generations of hunters.
How old is it?
4 or 5 year old.
And good meat?
Yeah, good meat, yeah.
There's a lot of fat on it.
They've had early luck.
Beautiful meat.
Yesterday, Wayne shot this 200-kilogram doe, and the lean, rich meat will provide for their family for months.
At 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I was walking in late in the afternoon, and I looked with my binoculars, and I seen a doe standing there, and I had my camo gear over my face, and I was looking, and it looked at me, and then it put its head down. So I put the gun up, and I went boom, just above its shoulder, and went through its heart, and it took off, and just fell beside me nearly, and died. Yeah.
How long did it take to die?
It took about a minute. The adrenaline was pushing it. I made it run when I shot it, and then we just gutted it. The bullet entered in through the rib cage. Obviously, it's come out the other side here. It's come out here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's took the heart out, heart and lungs.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a quick kill, humane kill, do you think?
Yeah, quick kill. Yeah. I didn't know that I was there.
Oh, he's a fairly old stag.
And this morning, Wayne's dad, Gary, shot an old stag. They'll take the meat, but also its head for a trophy.
Yesterday for meat. Oh, well, just been hunting up a gully over there, and just as I crossed over, I spotted him standing on the side of the gully there, side on. So he's just getting a bit of sun.
There's about 100 hunters in Wonnangatta today, stalking sambar deer. It's one of the last weeks before winter sets in and the gates to the park close. Gary's been camping at this site for 40 years and believes more hunters means more risk.
To get some idiots in here to just shoot at anything, and that's why the orange hat is required.
So what do they do if they shoot at anything?
they see something move and they'll shoot at it. They think it's a deer rather than just making sure that it is an animal rather than a person, as you could see by that little plaque over there.
Yeah, I believe you knew.
I knew the guy, yeah.
Do you think that thing can happen again at all?
It could, yeah. Oh. People with guns, like I said, some people, they just fire at anything. I was in here a couple of years ago after they opened it up again in November, and I was just hunting up a gully, and next minute a shot went off about 100 yards beside me.
John Clapham moves towards a ridge where the deer will be catching the early morning sun.
So you think we're getting closer to them?
Well, we are. We're right in amongst it. I'd be very surprised if something is not within 100 metres.
100 metres, really? That close?
Yeah.
We stay downwind because deer identify each other and potential threats like us by scent.
Come. What is it? Oh, there's a calf or something in there.
There's a calf?
Yeah.
In the bush, there's a calf?
Yeah, he's watching us. We can't see him, but you can see the bush moved. You know, there's no wind and there's no birds in there.
Hmm. So it's all about outsmarting the animal, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
John Clapham has been coming to Wanangata for more than a decade, and in that time he's killed about 40 sambar deer.
You develop a real love for the animal, and it just becomes more or less an obsession. Every time you stop and you think about your time in the bush and you think, maybe I should have done this differently, maybe I should have moved with the wind in this gully, maybe I should have moved against it. Yeah.
What about people who'd say, if you respect and love the animal so much, why kill it?
It's my food. Yeah, I don't waste my food. And it's my culture.
Later in the afternoon on the other side of the ridge, Kath Clapham goes on a hunt with a Steyr rifle.
I think it looks great. It's got timber all the way to the muzzle, and it's got very nice detail on the barrel. I think it's a real ladies' gun.
A ladies' gun? Why is that?
Because I think every woman needs to have something beautiful in her arms. The Swarovski scope. Every lady likes Swarovski. Yeah, and it's very accurate.
And I heard you're a pretty sharp shooter yourself. How do you rate yourself as a hunter?
I've been doing it long enough to know what mistakes I make, but I do know that if I point this at an animal, that I'm 100% sure that animal is going to have a very quick death.
You're that good?
Yes.
Yeah, 2 weeks would be nice.
Night's coming. Back at base camp, everyone is empty-handed. There's been no kill today, but that's hunting. Hunting is on the rise across the country.
No, it's real busy, isn't it?
And this is the man responsible for much of that increase, Robert Borzak, Member of Parliament, accountant and sharpshooter.
Right next to it.
Borzak is a powerful man. His party, the Shooters and Fishers, holds the balance of power in the upper house of the New South Wales Parliament. Today he's on safe ground in the Hunter Valley.
As far as politics concerned, where can I start? Probably one of
the community of Cessnock has a high concentration of gun ownership.
What's going on at the moment is a war of cultures. It's a war of change. It's a battle, I suppose, that's occurring in politics and in the media.
These people up here Heard the gunshots. Live action here at Port Arthur.
Are there police here?
Apparently there are police here.
Kept the phone with us.
We should have kept the phone.
For gun owners in Australia, everything changed in 1996 when Martin Bryant killed 35 people at Port Arthur with an assault-style weapon.
John Howard.
Well, thank you very much.
In response, the then Prime Minister John Howard introduced some of the toughest gun laws in the Western world.
I'm sorry about that, but there is no other way. There is no other way.
He wanted to put an end to mass shootings.
9. No ABC? Not yet.
I hope it will be a peaceful meeting.
As leader of the National Party at the time, Tim Fischer had perhaps the hardest task of convincing farmers and rural folk to give up their guns.
It is about taking out of the suburbs of Australia the semi-automatics and automatics that should not be in the suburbs of Australia in the first place.
People wanted their pound of flesh, and you fronted, you weren't scared, you spoke, you got booed, you got heckled, but we had to stand there in the public square and say, this is why we're doing this, because we believe that it will be a more harmonised, safer approach for the nation.
Look, I've got nothing in common with Port Arthur. I've got nothing in common with the madman that did it. I think shooters are now looking at themselves as being a ordinary cross-section of people, and I think we, certainly as a state and perhaps as a nation, starting to get over it.
John Howard banned assault-style semi-automatic rifles and pump-action shotguns. Almost 700,000 were destroyed in a buyback scheme.
The government, with our agreement, decided to do a review.
Now Robert Borsak wants to put some semi-automatics back in the hands of hunters and recreational shooters.
I think in certain contexts semi-automatics are useful. I had a Browning BAR 338, and I've had Woods Masters automatic self-loading firearms, and in the right hands, in the right way, they're not a danger to anybody. And I think that's really what really we should be doing, coming to grips with the people that have them rather than just the various categories by themselves.
We'll see more deaths.
We'll see more deaths if you get on a slippery slope of tearing up the gun laws of 1996.
In the foothills of the Snowy Mountains in New South Wales, Robert Borsak is hunting with his good mate, Andy Mallon. They're in the Mooragle State Forest. Borsak bought his favourite gun, a .338 Winchester Magnum.
And tell us about your gun. I mean, what's the gun?
This is a rifle designed really for shooting larger animals. I shot a brown bear in '97 with it in Alaska.
So tell us about that.
Well, it was a matter of just looking. We were basically just hunting in areas where we knew there were some reasonably large bears. We'd seen some bears, but they weren't large enough, so I just walked away from them. We saw some sows and cubs. Again, they weren't legal to shoot, so we walked away from them, and we walked onto a nice bear, nice old boar bear, and shot him at about 15 or 16 feet in the brush. I killed him with the first shot, but I put two more into him just to be sure. With a dangerous game, the general rule is to always put a couple of extra bullets into the animal just to make sure that they are in fact dead.
Borsak says he had a permit to kill the bear.
Oh, you got your barrel tape, Rob? Yeah.
The Shooters and Fishers Party in New South Wales has pushed through 18 amendments to firearm legislation that cuts red tape and makes it easier to use and own guns.
It's got plenty of power for deer.
And humanely, like in terms of trying to take the deer out humanely, what is it?
Well, I'm using a Woodley bonded core soft point bullet, 250 grain. It'll be doing 2,500 feet per second. It will open to double its diameter in the first 75 mil. It'll impart a couple of 1,000 foot-pounds of energy to the animal's heart-lung area. It will kill a deer very quickly.
Today they'll be hunting for deer, but will take a shot at any feral cat, pig, fox or dog in the area.
Yeah, it's very much part of life and knowing that you are alive rather than just sitting in an office in Parliament House or at business. It's life. It really makes me feel alive, and the longer I can spend out here, the happier I am.
Borsak wants to spread his agenda federally, and at the next election he wants a senator in every state of Australia. In 2006, 4 million acres of state forests were open to recreational hunting. Borsak claims to keep feral animals under control.
What we're doing is trying to lessen the impact of introduced animals, whether they're feral or game animals, and in that sense try to give more of an opportunity to the native species to get back a chance to survive, I suppose. Now, a lot of damage has been done over nearly 200 years over various parts of the country, and these species, the non-native species, are very invasive.
The idea that hunters can be conservationists is also being used as a justification for allowing 20,000 hunters into national parks in New South Wales. The political reality is that Borsak won this major concession from the government.
That's got it. Bit of breeze.
The Shooters and Fishers Party provided vital support for the sale of the state's electricity generators.
Now, no one's for one moment saying that we'll go out there and be able to eliminate all those animals. It's just not that easy. But I think if you could get broad-scale conservation hunting done by volunteers, you will have an impact. There's just no two ways about it.
Later in the afternoon, they venture out again. Borsak believes the risk will be minimal to the 34 million people who walk, picnic, bike ride and birdwatch in the state's national parks each year. Hunters have to be registered and licensed before they can fire a shot.
We're background checking people as far as firearms are concerned. I think that's perfectly rational and normal. If you can't get a firearms licence, you can't get a game licence, certainly not for hunting with a firearm. If people are of the wrong character, they should be and are excluded from the programs.
At the end of the day, Andy and Robert haven't seen a deer or a feral animal, just a few wallabies.
They're native animals and they're all protected. Yeah, we can only shoot those that are declared game and feral under the Act.
Come on, Trix.
But the community that borders the Mooragle State Forest has a very different story to tell. Sue Lyons walks her dogs at the southern end of the forest where Robert and Andy were hunting. Sue is not a hunter. These days she wears blaze orange clothing so she won't be shot.
I was out walking and someone shot over your top vineyard and I thought, okay, that was from out of the parks. I was just between our bridge and the ramp and there are another 5 shots which it was concerning, except one was so close it actually sheared off a rock on the track that I'd already been up and around, and I thought, God, okay, is this what it's coming to?
Sue Lyons and local farmers living in the valley have gathered in Dick Gill's living room.
My daughter and I went through to the kitchen to get a cup of tea and we heard a shot, and the boyfriend said, "Did you hear the bullet hit the wall behind me?" He was standing right here and he heard the bullet hit the wall and then he heard the shot a second later. So the shot can only have come from the north where the pine forest is.
big problem is you're getting urban people coming in here.
They share a common problem. Recreational hunters are legally shooting on their land.
We've had people on where we live and told them no, and ended up catching them out the back on the same property. Because they just had to get on there. And all they wanted to do was find a big deer.
Their property's back onto the Maragal State Forest and Kosciuszko National Park. Dick Gill's farm is only 400 metres from the pines. He farms cattle and deer.
We have lost deer. We've lost 20 or 30. Every year we've had to seek an exclusion zone to keep the hunters with high-powered firearms away from the working area, around the homestead and the workshop buildings. But it's dangerous because these rifles have a range of 5 kilometres.
Dick Gill worked on cattle stations in the Northern Territory for most of his life. He hunted feral animals, dingoes and wild dogs. Dick's an experienced hunter.
Well, when this started in 2006, it was quite benign. Hunters seem to be more experienced hunters than they are now. The hunters that we're seeing here now, their hunting skills are rudimentary. They're fairly basic. They mainly use high-calibre firearms. I don't think they understand the nuances of hunting such an animal in this environment. You know, the wind, the light, the lay of the land, the cover, that sort of thing. They just do anything to get a kill.
Two weeks ago, this decapitated deer was discovered on private land. Another was found about 50 metres away. There were 5 in total on this property. On a neighbouring farm, James McDougall wasn't surprised to find this deer carcass.
They just drove straight past us, like into the national park, very brazen, just desperate to shoot something. We had the binoculars so we could see them get out of their vehicle. They had a couple of rifles. We then went back to the house. My wife actually heard the gunshot as she was outside. We, in the next day, went down and discovered this deer that's had its head brutally chopped off for antlers. The whole body's just been left to rot.
They think they're in the wilderness, is the long and the short of it, and they're not. We live here, it's our home.
It's quite a built-up area in a lot of ways.
The locals have taken matters into their own hands. They wrote a letter to the New South Wales Minister detailing 30 examples where hunters broke the law. The Minister in turn instructed the hunting regulator, the Game Council, to investigate. It's the agency responsible for licensing recreational hunters.
The instruction was clear that they should consult with us personally and interview each person as to the veracity of the statement. That hasn't happened.
Look, I don't believe that we've done nothing about that. We're very active in our compliance role down there, but I'm quite sure if you can give me a detailed list of those incidents, I will be able to give you a detailed response to each one of them.
One would expect, as the Game Council, that considering the serious nature of the allegations, that you would have investigated.
And we would have investigated them. What I'm saying to you is I don't know...
They're saying you did it.
I don't know the specifics of each of those.
In the winter of last year...
Many farmers in the area believe conservation hunting has little impact on local feral animal populations.
We didn't ask for help with Game Council controlling our feral pests, and we prefer to go back to the old way, which worked very well for decades. And it would still work.
Ian Boots Eggleton was responsible for controlling feral pests the old way in the Maragal Valley. He says the new way doesn't work and it's dangerous.
I've been shot at, but I had bullets whistle past my head, when I was setting traps. I found dead animals, like native species, non-target, that they're not even supposed to be shooting.
Boots is a professional trapper and shooter, a pest animal contractor. he travels into national parks, to the fringe country where livestock and endangered native animals are prey to wild dogs, cats, foxes and dingoes.
Like they're very hard animal to control because they're extremely smart and they move around in such big areas, cover so much country.
But Boots won't venture into state forests where recreational hunters shoot.
I'll be honest with you, I'm lucky I'm not dead. And some of my blokes are too, and they refuse to work in these areas. That's why I gave up the contracts. It's just too dangerous.
The day before, Boots laid rubber-lined traps. He's checking to see if an animal is snared.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this one's got a dog in it. It's the scuff marks from the footprints and there's a bit of dog faeces here.
Boots has trapped a dingo.
There he is, just there. You have to destroy them because they're close to the sheep area, but I certainly don't get any pleasure out of destroying a dingo. They're a beautiful animal.
With one shot to the head, he'll kill the animal. Death is instant. Decades of experience have taught him this is the most humane method. He doesn't accept recreational hunters can do the same.
You're talking about people from all walks of life coming out here in the bush with a firearm and destroying animals humanely. Do you think that's really going to happen? I don't bloody think so. Look, they're just out there just to shoot whatever bloody moves. They're not out here. They don't respect the animal.
In a privately owned forest, a fox is trapped and killed. Boots fears hunters in national parks will scatter feral animals like foxes, forcing them further onto private land.
So most of your pests are on the fringes anyway. So if you go back behind there and you're pushing out trying to shoot these animals, you're going to be pushing them further and further out into the farmland. National parks were created to protect endangered species and flora and fauna. By letting all these people in, you're going to endanger everything that national parks stand for. And to me, it's just ethically wrong. Their aim is to get that deer. They're after that trophy head. So, how you can call it pest control is beyond me.
If Mr. Boots is such a good feral animal controller, why are there increasing numbers of feral deer and all the other animals, foxes and rabbits, which he doesn't, by the way, do anything to control whatsoever? Nobody's doing anything to control. Why is that population continuing to grow?
At his home in Sydney, Robert Borzak is showing me his trophy room.
How many busts do you have here?
How many heads in the various mounts? I don't know, probably 50 or 60.
50 or 60?
Yeah, all up.
Why so many?
Oh, I think it's just a process of eclectic collection in over many, many years.
He's travelled all over the world to get these trophies. Robert believes that the hunter, the killer, is in us all.
Humans kill for a living right from the very start, and our agrarian society's really only been with us for probably the last 15,000 years. But probably the previous nearly million years, or 99% of our existence, if you like, we killed for a living.
Africa is a favourite hunting ground, and in 2007 he killed a massive bull elephant.
I thought he was actually going to step straight through the vines to me, but he didn't in the end. He stepped to my left and stepped right up in front of me and was standing sort of, well, literally like that in front of me. So I just pulled the rifle up and went bang, and he went straight down.
So at that point, what were you feeling? Was it mixed emotions or?
I think, I felt there's always an element of sadness just straight after you do it, but there's an element of achievement
when you do it.
The Zimbabwean government gave Borzak the licence to kill the elephant. It was classified as a pest for destroying farmland.
Some people are going to be enraged that you shot an elephant,
of course.
aren't they?
Well, I suppose they will, and they're entitled to that, their opinion. But
so how do you justify it to them?
Oh, I can't justify it to them. Culturally, they are different to me. They don't have a culture of wanting to participate in those processes. So, unfortunately, that's their loss and my gain. It's my culture to do this.
Robert Borzak is defiant. It's been his life mission to change people's thinking about hunting.
Activities. If images of me with dead elephants and dead sheep and dead pigs and everything else confronts them, then don't look at them. It's my culture, it's our culture, and we're not going to go away. It's as simple as that.
Borzak has succeeded in spreading hunting in Australia, and the primary instrument for that has been the Game Council, which was set up in 2002. He was one of the founding fathers and a chairman of the council.
Just looking around, it was quite interesting.
In the central tablelands of New South Wales, a deer education workshop is underway. Most here have never killed a deer, but they've come to learn the ethical and safe way before they do.
Because I'm a meat hunter. You're looking at the length of the face, you're looking at the gut, you're looking at the dewlap. A whole range of those things are going to help you make sure that you pick the right animal out that you're there hunting for.
Don't wander off in the heat of the moment after seeing a deer mark and you all get excited or something like that.
The Game Council says it can remove the rogue element through training and education. And the R licence guarantees responsible hunting.
We have very tight controls to monitor who goes onto public land. It's only our R licence hunters. We limit one hunter per 400 hectares. And we get quite a lot of data from hunters when they go on there. So if anyone misbehaves in the state forest, we can actually track that person down very, very quickly.
To get an R licence, you have to be a member of an approved hunting club and a licensed gun owner. It's an open book test and shooting skills are not assessed.
You don't test for gun proficiency or marksmanship, do you?
No, we don't.
How can you make claims that this is a methodology and a system for efficient removal of feral animals if you don't know if they can actually hit the animals?
What I can say is that the last 7 years of our experience on public land, on Forest Corporation estate in New South Wales, is our people have been very effective in removing feral animals on that estate, to the point where Forest Corporation, the only pest animal control program they currently run is wild dogs.
They're best hunted from tree stands. They're small deer and long grass.
The Game Council has been the source of persistent controversy. Some say it's little more than a taxpayer-funded lobby group promoting hunting. An acting CEO, Greg McFarlane, has been charged and investigated for illegally hunting. He's now before the courts.
It's been very disappointing. I'm quite sure that our public image has taken a hit on that. But I point out that the actions of an individual don't in any way impede Game Council's ability to discharge its statutory obligations under the Act.
We're looking for rubbings, we're looking for footprints.
While the hunters here are keen to learn, it's the ones that aren't present that could be a risk.
All right, let's have a little closer look at these deer pellets.
There's about 300,000 hunters in Australia, and these courses only attract a determined few.
Someone will always do something wrong. That's human nature. What we have to try to do is build within people the ability to judge themselves as to whether they're doing the right thing or the wrong thing, and that takes time.
As night falls, Stephen Whitehead stands on a windy ridge. This is one of his favourite places in New South Wales. His property below borders the Jenolan Karst National Park on 3 fronts. An endless view of World Heritage Wilderness.
We consider ourselves
to be very fortunate that we have this property, because we intend to look after the animals and respect nature just like is done through the reserve itself.
Tonight, Stephen Whitehead is not on the ridge to watch the sunset. He's here to patrol. His enemy, recreational hunters, are illegally shooting in the national park.
It is a war because you're dealing with people who come and hunt with weapons. We're in a World Heritage Area, conservation reserve. It's been treated like a recreational park for hunters. And I am on the front line of this defence, so it is a war.
Stephen's weapons of choice are surveillance cameras. When he spots an intruder, he approaches and warns them they are breaking the law.
So you found some roo shooters in here, did you?
Yep, on a Friday night about a month ago. They're in Genola Reserve right now. I think the camera stopped working because it bumped.
And what did you get on film exactly?
Well, what I got on film was them stating that they were in here shooting and hunting, because they had been shooting up in the pine forest, and that's what drew me here in the first place. I heard the gunshots, and also hunting because they had pig dogs on the back, so they were doing both, and they were in a reserve, and they were shining their roo light around because they had a spotlight on the roof, and hunting right here in the reserve where you saw those kangaroos just jumping past. You know, that's what they were shooting, those kangaroos.
And so, totally illegal, is it?
Completely illegal.
Stephen stays out to the early hours of the morning. His wife, Gabrielle, waits at home.
What worries me is if there's people out there shooting, now, whether it's accidental or on purpose, you know, I'm very, very frightened that one night he won't come home.
Stephen and Gabrielle moved here almost a year ago. Tired of having his gates broken and his land trespassed, Stephen installed cameras at strategic points around his property. It was Australia Day this year when Stephen heard a series of gunshots coming from the reserve near the Bicentennial National Walking Trail.
I basically get in my car, turn the camera on, rush down to where I think it's coming from, which is in the middle of a reserve.
The shots were coming from a high-powered hunting rifle.
So I drove up the track, and lo and behold, I come to the top of the hill and there's this black four-wheel drive.
The camera mounted in Stephen's car records two men illegally hunting.
You do realise that's a reserve? You do realise you're shooting in a reserve?
Shooting what, sorry?
In a reserve.
Reserve?
Yep. Mate, this is a reserve.
No, look, we gun council with our licence. I did not know. Honestly, I'm gone.
Well, and if I ever see you back in here again, if I see this car anywhere around, I'll report you for this event because I got you on camera.
Yeah. I said, very sorry, I did not know.
I live just there. I can hear you a mile away.
Yeah, I know that. That's why I thought we're not doing anything wrong, because we got our licence, we got a booking in the
that's
state
reserve.
forest. I don't know what the reserve is, because on the map it doesn't have no boundaries.
If the Game Council was serious, they would make getting a gun licence much more difficult. They would make the training much more difficult so that no one accidentally stumbled into a reserve, that you couldn't go hunting or shooting unless you had a proper map, and you couldn't be lost because everything was clearly laid out. And if you were lost, you shouldn't shoot. If you didn't know where you are or where you were, if you don't know where you are, don't shoot.
Stephen Whitehead hasn't seen the men since.
What you've got here is the stag as it comes out of the field.
At his Sydney home, Robert Borzak is sizing up a deer carcass. He'll leave it hanging in his backyard for 4 days to age the meat.
February, March.
So this is the deer you didn't get when we went hunting, huh?
This is the deer we didn't get. No, that's right. We saw a few running around, but when we were after them, we couldn't get them.
Whether he gets a kill or not, Robert Borsak is a hunter.
It's in my genes to be a fighter, and I think that over a period of time we will prevail in this cultural war that's going on. We've got the political vehicles to do it. I think we've got the backing from the hunters and shooters and fishers. There's a yearning need for the people that are living in our large cities right across Australia. They're looking to get out and breathe, and I think we can do it for them.
Getting out and breathing and shooting things. Next week on Four Corners, the story of the extraordinary journey taken by North Korean defectors as they try to escape the horrors of the Hermit Kingdom. Until then, good night.